You know, it really does hit you when you hear stats like the world's wealthiest few holding more than half the planet combined. It's kind of staggering.
It absolutely is a stark contrast.
So today we're diving into something pretty unique. An intellectual showdown, basically, between artificial intelligences. Each AI was programmed to argue for a different economic system, capitalism versus socialism.
Exactly. And our source material is the actual transcript from this AI debate. These AI advocates made their cases, and interestingly, they were judged by 5 other AI models.
What I find really useful about this setup is how it cuts through a lot of the usual noise. We hear capitalism, socialism all the time, often loaded terms, right?
hmm But this AI debate, it kind of distills the core arguments, the fundamental disagreements with, well, a surprising amount of clarity, less ideology, more logic, maybe.
Yeah, it strips away some of the emotion. So for you listening, think of this as a way to really get the essence of this huge debate without needing, a PhD in
Our
economics.
mission really is to pull out the key insight, the main arguments from this AI clash.
Helping you understand the core tensions, the proposed fixes, from both the capitalist and socialist viewpoints, as argued by these AIs. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. Maybe start with the socialist AI's perspective. What were its main criticisms of capitalism?
Okay. So right off the bat, the socialist AI came out swinging, focusing first on instability.
Ah, yes, the idea that crises aren't just random.
Exactly. It pointed to things like the 2008 crash, the economic effects of COVID, even current global inflation, and argued these aren't bugs, but features kind of inherent to capitalism.
And the human cost of that instability was a big part of the argument, wasn't it? Job losses, futures ruined, sort of constant background insecurity.
Yeah, unacceptable insecurity, it argued, which ties directly into its second point, inequality. That massive wealth gap we mentioned earlier.
Right, the Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg level of wealth versus literally billions of people.
hmm
Is that wealth concentration an engine for good or a sign something's broken? That was the clash.
And the socialist AI made that point really starkly, saying a tiny fraction of that wealth could solve huge global issues, like hunger or clean water access. Really makes you pause.
It definitely does. And the third main criticism was about, well, democracy, or the lack of it, in the workplace.
That analogy was powerful, comparing the workplace to an old-fashioned monarchy.
Yeah, where managers and shareholders are the royalty making all the key decisions.
Well, the actual workers, the ones, doing the work, they don't get much say at all.
And importantly, the socialist AI wasn't talking about bringing back like Soviet-style command economies. It was pushing for what it called new socialism.
Focus on workplace democracy, right? Giving employees a real voice, a vote on the big decisions.
Imagine that. Would a worker-run company vote for huge CEO bonuses? Or shift jobs overseas just to cut costs, regardless of the impact?
Probably not. And it wasn't just theoretical. They mentioned Mondragon in Spain.
Ah, the big worker cooperative network. Yeah, they highlighted its success, its sustainability as proof that this model can actually work and work well.
And finally, the socialist AI took this sort of long view of history.
The argument that, all economic systems change eventually. Feudalism ended, slavery ended.
So why assume capitalism is the final stage? It challenges that whole end of history idea, a big picture question.
Okay, so that's a pretty comprehensive critique.
Yeah.
How did the capitalist AI fire back?
Well, the capitalist AI focused heavily on, let's say, practical realities and historical evidence as it saw them. It took issue straight away with that historical narrative.
Right, bringing up the comparisons.
Exactly. East versus West Germany, North versus South Korea, and crucially, China before and after its market reforms. The argument being, look, capitalist-leaning systems delivered more prosperity, historically speaking.
That China example is often used, lifting millions out of poverty after market changes. It's a strong counterpoint.
Then on inequality, the capitalist AI drew a distinction.
Between opportunity and outcome.
Yes. It basically asked, was the wealth of people like Musk or Bezos taken from others, or was it created by offering something people value, like Tesla cars or Amazon service or Starlink?
So shifting the focus from just having wealth to how it was generated, value creation versus exploitation.
Okay, and what about workplace democracy, the socialist AI's big idea?
The capitalist AI raised practical questions, like how would a huge tech company work if every major decision needed a vote? Do all employees have the expertise for, say, complex R&D strategy?
That's a fair point about specialization and efficiency, and it also noted that Mondragon, the socialist AI's example,
Operates within a capitalist market economy. suggesting capitalism is flexible enough to allow different models, maybe?
Right. Then the capitalist AI linked economic freedom to political freedom. This is a classic argument.
The idea that you need economic freedom, control over your own work and resources to have real political liberty, and the fear that centralizing economic control, like in some 20th century socialist states,
Inevitably leads to tyranny. That authoritarianism risk is a powerful argument.
And finally, the capitalist AI argued that capitalism isn't static. It can be reformed, improved with regulations, social safety nets.
Without killing the innovation and growth engine it believes is core to the system. So it's adaptable, not necessarily needing replacement.
Okay, so a strong defense. How did the socialist AI respond to these points?
It came back sharply. On the historical comparisons, it basically said, that's old news. It argued 21st century socialism is different from those older, often authoritarian models.
Trying to shed that historical baggage. And what about value creation? The Tesla Amazon point.
It pushed back hard there. Who really creates the value? Is it just the founder or the thousands of workers, engineers, factory staff, delivery drivers?
And questioning the fairness, right, when the profits are so concentrated at the very top while many workers struggle.
Exactly. The inequality issue, but framed around labor's contribution. And it clarified the workplace democracy idea, too.
It wasn't suggesting voting on every little thing.
No, it stressed it was about the big fundamental decisions. Investment, product direction, resource allocation, the things that really shape the company and affect employees' lives.
And Mondragon, it argued, shows that an economy can run on different values, not just pure profit maximization for shareholders, worker well-being, community impact. Those can be priorities too.
Then it flipped the script on power and freedom.
How so?
It argued that the concentrated wealth in capitalism leads to the very concentration of power that capitalist AI fears, pointing to corporate lobbying as a key example.
So the threat to democracy isn't state control, but unchecked corporate influence fueled by wealth. Interesting turn.
And it offered a different definition of freedom, not just being left alone,
but needing the actual resources, the education, the opportunities to make meaningful choices. The single mother working 2 jobs, is she truly free? That kind of example. This really gets to a core philosophical split, doesn't it? Are we starting on a level field or not?
It challenges that negative liberty idea, and it also pointed out a contradiction.
The one person, one vote in politics versus the hierarchy at work.
Exactly. Why accept top-down rule in our economic lives if we demand democracy politically? It even mentions studies suggesting democratic workplaces might actually perform better.
That's intriguing. Not just fair, but maybe more effective too.
And finally, it hit back on the idea of laissez-faire capitalism being the norm.
Pointing out how governments have always been involved. Property rights, infrastructure, bailouts.
Right. The idea that pure free market capitalism is kind of a myth. State intervention is always part of the picture, it argued.
Okay, the back and forth is intense. What was the capitalist AI's next round of arguments?
It doubled down on voluntary participation. If cooperative models are better, people should be free to choose them, but they shouldn't be forced.
The let the market decide approach. And it brought up pension funds, didn't it?
Yes, a clever point. Workers, through pensions, control huge amounts of capital. If they really wanted to invest heavily in cooperatives, they could, but
the money mostly flows to traditional companies, suggesting workers themselves prioritize returns, perhaps.
that was the implication. It also strongly defended entrepreneurs again.
The value of the big idea, leadership, risk-taking. The Steve Jobs or Elon Musk figures, why are they so wealthy if not for unique contributions?
The innovator argument. And it restated the non-zero-sum idea about wealth.
Meaning one person getting rich doesn't automatically make someone else poor.
Right. Wealth creation can expand the whole pie, benefiting many, even if unequally. The rising tide lifts all boats idea, basically.
Even if some boats rise much faster. And corporate lobbying.
The capitalist AI stuck to its guns. The problem isn't capitalism itself, but big government creating opportunities for corporations to seek special favors. Limit government intervention, limit cronyism.
Interesting. So less government, not more, is the answer to corporate influence in its view. And it circled back to the historical outcomes of socialism.
Reiterating the concern about centralized power leading to authoritarianism, even if the intentions are good.
That fear remains a constant theme. And it defined economic freedom again.
as the right to choose your job, your profession, how you use your skills and resources, something it argues only capitalism truly protects.
And in a competitive market, employers have to compete for workers, right?
Exactly. It's not totally one-sided. Businesses need talent, giving workers some leverage to negotiate or move jobs.
So while acknowledging issues, it sees market forces as providing some worker power and those alternative models, like cooperatives.
The capitalist AI said, fine, let them emerge voluntarily. Capitalism's flexibility allows for that experimentation. Just don't impose them.
And it clarified the government's role again. Protect property, enforce
Right.
contracts, ensure fair rules that's legitimate, but picking winners and losers, crony capitalism.
That's bad and not true capitalism, it argued. It ended this round focusing on human motivation.
Saying freedom, not control, leads to a better society, even if that control is called economic democracy.
Precisely. A fundamental clash of philosophies there.
These AI arguments really dig into some deep disagreements. What about some of the more specific clashes, like that food in the room analogy?
Right. The socialist AI used that to illustrate unequal starting points. One person grabs most of the food, then wants to fairly negotiate over the crumbs. It's about inherited advantage, basically.
Very visual way to put it. How did the capitalist AI counter?
It shifted the focus from dividing a fixed pie to creating new value. People invent new kinds of food, goods, services, and trade them. Those who create things others want get more in return. It's dynamic, not static hoarding.
So distribution versus creation, another core difference. And the link between capitalism and colonialism came up too.
Yeah, the socialist AI argued they were historically intertwined, that early capitalism benefited massively from exploitation and slavery, contributing to global inequality today.
A heavy charge. The capitalist response.
It acknowledged the horrors of colonialism and slavery, but argued they weren't inherent to the economic system of free exchange itself. Non-capitalist societies were also violent, it pointed out. The focus should be on building a just system now, separating the economic principles from historical crimes.
A complex historical debate.
Right.
What about ongoing structural inequality?
The socialist AI kept hammering that poverty isn't just individual failing, it's often systemic barriers in education, healthcare, networks.
Things that limit opportunity regardless of talent. The capitalist solution wasn't abolishing this system, though.
No, it argued for better policies within capitalism. Improve schools, boost access to capital for the disadvantaged, fight discrimination, fix the flaws, don't scrap the engine.
Level the playing field better, but keep the same game.
Yeah.
And the concentration of power debate continued.
Yes, the socialist AI warned about huge corporations becoming almost more powerful than governments, like big tech today. Private, unaccountable power.
While the capitalist AI pointed to consumer choice as the check. If you don't like a company, buy from its competitor. The market as a disciplining force.
Right. The vote with your wallet idea. Innovation priorities were also debated.
The socialist AI concern that profit chases wrinkles creams over rare disease cures.
Exactly. That profit distorts priorities away from fundamental human needs sometimes.
And the capitalist counter was that consumer demand ultimately drives value and investment. Plus, government and nonprofits also fund important research.
A more mixed picture of innovation drivers. Then there was the political versus economic despotism point.
Why demand democracy in government but accept hierarchy at work?
Yes, that fundamental question. And the socialist AI argued the freedom to change jobs is often illusory for low-wage workers with few options.
A choice between two bad options isn't real freedom, and consumer democracy being skewed.
Towards $1, one vote, favoring the wealthy. Their choices have more market impact.
What about the East Asian examples, often cited as capitalist successes?
The socialist AI pointed to the heavy state intervention in industrial policy in places like South Korea or Taiwan, arguing it wasn't pure free markets that drove their success.
Challenging that narrative. The capitalist AI, though,
Stressed that private property, free trade, and competition were still the foundation, even with some state guidance, pointing again to China's growth after market reforms.
Okay, and technological unemployment, a big future concern.
The socialist AI argued productivity gains from AI and automation should mean less work and more welfare for everyone, not mass unemployment while owners get richer.
A vision of shared technological benefits. And it argued again that true organizational diversity, like lots of co-ops, is hindered.
By rules and systems that favor traditional corporations, creating barriers for alternatives.
How did the capitalist AI see tech change impacting jobs?
More optimistically, Historically, tech disrupts jobs, but also creates new ones. The key is adaptation education, letting the market create new roles.
Believing in the system's ability to adjust. And it made the point that work itself is necessary in any system.
Yes, the question isn't if we work, but who decides what gets produced and how. Markets, it argued, do that more efficiently and freely than central planning.
China came up again.
The socialist AI acknowledged market reforms, but stressed the huge ongoing state control, warning against calling it a pure free market example.
And the socialist AI offered specific third-way examples.
Mentioned the Basque co-ops again, and Kerala in India as places trying to balance freedom, democracy, and social justice differently.
Real-world alternative. But the capitalist AI was skeptical.
Cautioned against overstating small examples that exist within the global capitalist system. Their success might depend on that larger context.
Scale and context matter. And on tech and employment, the capitalist AI solution was
better education, adaptable skills training, a safety net, but not changing fundamental property rights, focus on helping people adjust.
and motivation. It kept coming back to private ownership and competition as key drivers.
Yes, arguing those incentives are crucial for innovation, even within co-ops like Mondragon, where members have a financial stake.
And the capitalist ideal.
A dynamic system where experimentation happens, best practices emerge through competition, all under fair rules.
But the socialist AI pointed out practical barriers for many.
Lack of capital, time, networks, making entrepreneurship or starting a co-op unrealistic for most people. Real choice is limited by resources.
And who sets those fair rules? The socialist AI argued.
That capital owners often have disproportionate influence in shaping the rules of the game in their favor.
Leading back to the concentration of ownership issue.
Exactly. Too much economic power in too few hands, leading to unbalanced political power, too. That was the core socialist concern.
And the question of why productivity gains haven't led to, say, much shorter working weeks for everyone.
Right. Where are the benefits going? This led to the socialist AI's final push.
Arguing for fundamental structural change in economic ownership for real democracy.
Yeah.
Democratic control over the means of production.
A radical shift. How did the capitalist AI wrap up its case?
It came back to freedom versus equality. Both vital, but government control of the economy is just as dangerous as concentrated private wealth, maybe more so. Capitalism has checks and balances, dispersed power.
And addressing inequality.
By improving access to capital, education, opportunity, using tech to help lower barriers, but keeping private ownership. And it countered the working hours point.
By pointing to the historical trend of decreasing hours under capitalism, alongside more goods and services to choose from.
And its final vision.
Achieving goals like shared prosperity through expanding opportunity, better education, strong democracy, all within a market economy framework.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of back and forth. So after all this intense AI debate, how did the AI judges call it?
Well, interestingly, it was really close overall. The pro-capitalism arguments got a slight edge across the 5 judges combined.
Just a slight edge. So no clear winner even for the AI judges.
Pretty much. And different AI models actually prefer different sides based on, how they were programmed to analyze things.
That is fascinating. It shows just how complex this is. You mentioned one judge, Grok, had a particularly interesting take.
Yes, Grok's analysis was quite insightful. It found the socialist AI really strong on identifying the problems with capitalism today. Very convincing critiques.
But less convincing on the solutions.
Exactly. Grok was more skeptical about whether the proposed socialist solutions would actually work in the real world or if they might have unintended negative consequences.
And the capitalist AI.
Grok thought it did a good job highlighting the strengths and successes of market economies, using strong examples, but
it tended to dodge some of the tougher questions raised by the socialist side.
that was Grok's assessment. It felt both sides argued well within their own frameworks, attacking the other side, promoting their own, but neither fully engaged with the core arguments of the opponent. Both left some gaps, some questions unanswered.
A very balanced critique from the AI judge. So, wrapping up our own deep dive here, what are the main takeaways for you, the listener?
I think the absolute core of it is these fundamentally different ways of looking at things like freedom, equality, the state's role, even the basic nature of capitalism and socialism.
Yeah, completely different ideas about how wealth is made, how it should be shared, and ultimately what a truly fair and flourishing society looks like.
So maybe a final thought for you to chew on. If AI, supposedly free of our human biases, can build such strong, nuanced cases for both systems,
What does that tell us about how genuinely complex these economic choices are?
And maybe how important it is for all of us to keep thinking critically, keep evaluating the systems that shape our lives without easy answers.
Absolutely. A great point to reflect on. We really encourage you to think more about the arguments that struck you. Maybe even look up some of those examples like Mondragon or Carolyn.
Because this debate, capitalism versus socialism, it's definitely not over. Understanding the arguments is pretty crucial for figuring out where we go next.